Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're exploring a topic that might just make you question everything you thought you knew about power, influence, and the forces that shape our societies. We're talking about the shadow elite, a term coined by anthropologist Janine Wedel in her eye-opening book, Shadow Elite: How the World's New Power Brokers Undermine Democracy, Government, and the Free Market. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another book about power and corruption? But trust me, this isn't your typical political exposé. Wedel's work is a fascinating journey into the lives of a new breed of influencers who are redefining the rules of the game, and not necessarily for the better. Let me set the scene for you. Imagine a world where the lines between government, business, and personal interests are so blurred that it's nearly impossible to tell who's working for whom. Picture influential figures who glide effortlessly between roles as consultants, think tankers, media pundits, and government advisors, all while pursuing their own agendas. These are the flexians, as Wedel calls them, and they're not just bending the rules, they're rewriting them. Take, for instance, the story of a Polish scholar and former parliament speaker who found himself in a rather unusual situation. During a break in a meeting with high-ranking police officials, he noticed something peculiar. The room was filled with more than just the usual cigarette smoke. When he confronted his fellow advisors, they casually admitted to smoking marijuana. Now, you might think this is just a humorous anecdote, but it speaks volumes about a society where rule-breaking is not only common, but almost celebrated. But here's the kicker. This isn't just happening in post-communist countries. It's happening right here, in the United States, and on a much grander scale. Wedel argues that these flexians are systematically upending rules and authority, not for personal enjoyment or necessity, but to wield high-level power and influence. So, who are these flexians? They're the new power brokers who operate at the nexus of state and private power, often blurring the lines between the two. They're the consultants who advise governments while simultaneously working for private companies, the think tankers who shape policy while promoting their own interests, and the media pundits who present themselves as unbiased experts while being anything but. Wedel spent 3 decades observing these players, first in Eastern Europe under communism, and then as those countries transitioned away from it. She then turned her attention to the global stage, particularly the United States, where she found similar patterns of behavior. These flexians, she argues, are not just individuals, but part of a larger network that operates across official and private organizations, creating a closed loop that is often inaccessible to democratic processes. One of the most striking examples Wedel provides is the case of Barry McCaffrey, a retired 4-star Army general who became a media military analyst, defense industry consultant, and part-time professor. McCaffrey's influence was not just due to his expertise, but also to his special access to the Pentagon and his ability to leverage that information across different roles. He frequently appeared on television news, often presenting himself as an unbiased expert while simultaneously promoting the Pentagon's positions. His overlapping roles created incentives for him to be less than impartial, yet he was able to maintain his credibility and influence. But flexians aren't just about personal gain. They institutionalize their subversion of authority, often making decisions that affect us all in areas ranging from the economy and foreign affairs to government and society. They fashion new rules of the game to benefit themselves, often at the expense of the public interest. Wedel introduces us to the concept of flex nets, groups of flexians who work together to multiply their influence. These networks are not just interest groups or lobbies. They are far more complex and less accountable. They operate with a shared conviction and action, often promoting a particular worldview and agenda. They are self-sustaining teams with their own agendas, cutting through bureaucracy and connecting entities to streamline decision-making. One of the most prominent examples of a flex net is the Neocon Corps, a group of interconnected players who have been working together for decades to put their ideology into action. Wedel studied their activities, from delving into published material to interviewing people associated with them, and even interviewing some of the key players themselves. She found that their modus operandi was strikingly similar to that of influential groups in transitional Eastern Europe, where players straddled official and private organizations, achieving their group goals even at the expense of the institutions they supposedly served. But what makes these flexians and flex nets so effective? It's their ability to personalize bureaucracy, privatize information, and brand conviction. They juggle roles and representations, often performing overlapping or ambiguous roles to maximize their influence. They amass resources and coordinate efforts, creating a resource pool that enhances their collective effectiveness. Moreover, they operate in a truthiness society, where appearances and self-presentations are often accepted at face value. They are adept at manipulating appearances, showing up in different guises to achieve their ends, and flexing whichever of their roles gives them the most credibility at the moment. The implications of this new system of power and influence are profound. It challenges the principles that have long defined modern states, free markets, and democracy itself. It undermines accountability, transparency, and the public interest. And it raises the question, how do we hold these players accountable? Wedel urges us to recognize the new players and their modus operandi, to understand the new system of power and influence, and to work towards recovering public trust. Because, as she reminds us, in a world where no one can serve two masters, the challenge for policymakers and citizens alike is to ensure that those who wield power and influence are truly serving the public interest. So, what can we do? We can start by demanding more transparency and accountability from our institutions. We can support investigative journalism and public interest watchdogs who are working to uncover the truth. And we can educate ourselves and others about the new power dynamics at play. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of the shadow elite. I hope this episode has given you a new perspective on the forces shaping our world. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and stay bright.
Visit BrightLearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.